Forever. Dog.
So I want to do a call out podcast where people tell me cool topics and then I call them to ask about the topics. And, you know, some people replied with, yeah, I want to do it. Or, yeah, I could talk about dogs. I don't know. And, you know, I liked their enthusiasm that they wanted to be a part of it. But I need you to reply with a specific expertise. And so you couldn't believe how thrilled I was when a real astronomer from the southwestern United States contacted me saying that he worked on a really big telescope for NASA and could talk about it. I feel like Kevin was saying so much interesting stuff, but I worry that the comedy podcast listener is just going to tune out if there aren't funny riffs all over the place. So, you know, I wish that I didn't have to do it this way, but I am going to pre-record some funny riffs and then splice them in the edit. Okay, recording funny riffs. Go. Okay. Haha. What? That's crazy. You crazy for this one. Kevin. Colloquiums are crazy. Yeah, I had the same experience. Me too. Speaking of stars, how about Hollywood, you know? Oh, Southern California. I bet you saw a lot of stars, as in celebrities. New Hampshire. Kevin, watch out! Shut up. You are bad. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, no shit. Yeah, we know. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, so I think maybe Forever Dog, if he says anything really smart, you could put in some of those things where I say like, I know, or obviously. And then the listener would think that I'm really smart. Yeah, I think we'll use those riffs. And now let's get into Kevin's call.
Hello.
Hi, is this Kevin the astronomer?
This is Kevin the astronomer. Hi, Mary.
Hi, what's up?
Not much. I'm in my office here in the University of Arizona in Tucson, Arizona. I'm doing astronomy right now. It's been very fun this morning.
Where are you from?
I'm from Orange County, California, like 10, 15 minutes away from Disneyland. And I grew up there and then went to college outside of LA and then grad school in LA. And then I moved, after I got my PhD, I moved to New Hampshire for 3 years. And now I live in Arizona.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I was trying to place your accent and I thought you sounded like Canadian sociologist Malcolm Gladwell.
You know, maybe I have a little bit of, no, I think that Southern California in my head is the most neutral accent, but I think everyone thinks their accent is super neutral.
Not me.
Oh. Where is your accent from?
I'm from New Jersey and I went to college in California. And when I first got there, everyone was like, wait, say that again. Wait, guys, gather around, listen to her.
When people heard that I was from Orange County, they would always expect me to like slip into the Orange County accent that everyone thinks that we have. We're like, you know, just we surf and stuff. But I think it's just neutral. I don't know. When I do that New York Times analysis of like, what is your regional dialect? It always pinpoint me right exactly in Southern California. So I guess I am Southern California-ese. But maybe Malcolm Gladwell slips in there a little bit. I'm not super sure.
Oh, Southern California. Mm-hmm. I bet you saw a lot of stars, as in celebrities. So you got like a telescope in that room or what?
So in my room right now, it's mostly computers. Most astronomers, we alternate going to telescopes or using telescopes and then just sitting in front of one or multiple screens and analyzing the data and tapping on keyboards really fast. But I work on a telescope with NASA called the James Webb Space Telescope, which is like everyone's heard of Hubble, the kind of famous space telescope that, is probably the most famous telescope. Its successor, the next generation Hubble, the bigger Hubble, is called James Webb. And the main camera was built here at the University of Arizona. And I work on that. So I'm essentially one of the people in charge of, like, when the telescope launches in a couple of years, we're going to take a bunch of really far away galaxy images of really far galaxies. And my job here at the university is I'm one of the people in charge of figuring out how you can go from a picture of a galaxy to how far away the galaxy is.
Whoa. What? That's crazy.
So at one point, this computer I'm holding in my hands right now, that doesn't help your listeners, but this computer will probably be the computer that figures out the farthest galaxy humans have ever discovered.
Oh my God.
In a couple of years. Yes, light that has traveled for, 12, 13 billion years to get to our telescope that will be in space, bounce off of the giant gold mirror of James Webb, and then go onto the little camera that we've got, and then come back down to Earth, and we'll analyze it. And we'll analyze it in part here at the University of Arizona and here with our team.
Oh, come on. You know the Earth is only 2,050 years old.
I have done a little bit of research, and if it was, then there's a lot of rocks on the planet that are lying to us by being a lot older than that.
Wait, I have a question.
Sure.
So I was glancing at the moon the other night and deep in thought, and I was wondering, like way in the past, when we did not know that the moon was going around us and we were going around the sun, what did people used to think the different phases of the moon were? Like if they didn't think that the Earth was covering it up or whatever.
So that's like, it depends on the culture. And like, there's lots of different stories about like dragons that would eat part of the moon. The thing is that like
that one's probably right.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty good. Or like different animals. I've heard people tell me that in their cultures, their history of their culture, it was a giant rice cake that a rabbit just slowly ate little bits of, and then I guess pooped the bits back out in a perfect circle again.
Kevin,
the thing is that like from a really dark place, you can actually see the other part of the moon that's not like lit up, like right by and so it's not a thing where, unless you like were very, very ignorant of what you were looking at, you probably would think, oh, it's there. There's just some sort of shadow going on there. And I think that like it's really culture by culture, and it probably was a thing where instead of them going, this is actually what it is, it would just, a story would come up around it. And that's kind of a fun thing about astronomy to me, is that like every culture had the same sky and stars and moon, and so every culture had their own stories about this. Like it's a pretty cool thing that like links us all together as human beings. Is that if you go to indigenous people and in every culture in the world, you'll find they'll have interesting new stories, and most often they're just not taken literally. They're just stories that like were passed down, kind of like these oral traditions.
Yeah.
And I bet the moon has them for most cultures as well. So I don't exactly know more than what I've said.
That's pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what it's like to be an astronomer? What is the personal life of an astronomer?
So when I was like in high school, like I had this like vision of like what an astronomer was that I think most people still have. Like you just like stay up all night looking through telescopes and just like your head's always in the clouds. And I think that being an astronomer in actuality is a little bit of that in real life. Like you do a lot of observing, especially if you are a person who like needs to get current observations. And so when I was in graduate school and as a postdoc, you go flying to telescopes because they put telescopes on very specific places. Like there's telescopes down here in Arizona. There's ones like in Hawaii and other islands away from big cities. You go observing a lot. And then that is a thing where you have to go to the telescope and invert your sleep schedule. So you stay up all night and, but you never look through the eyepiece. No one looks through eyepieces anymore. You don't like sit at the bottom of the telescope looking up. Like it's all just on a computer, like taking fancy pictures with the telescope.
You are
depending
bad.
on the size of the telescope, some smaller telescopes, you still have to actually run the whole thing yourself, which is fun. At the largest telescopes, they've got a telescope operator. So you take these observations, and then, so that's like a tiny chunk of your time. And then most of it is spent, analyzing those data and writing papers. So you do a lot of writing, and then submitting the papers and hoping they get accepted and stuff. And then the way that astronomers do a lot of their vacationing is that you often have to go, you apply to go to conferences. And so like next year, I'm applying in the next couple of days to go to a conference in Portugal, which will be my like Portuguese vacation. My friend was just in Napa where they had like a conference, and they always put these conferences in really fancy places. Like I've gone to Croatia and sat out on the beach in Croatia after like a day of dumb talks. And it's just like you give all these talks at conferences. The astronomy community is like incredibly small. Like there is like 1 out of every million people or more is an astronomer. It's like only some number of 10 to 100,000 people in total. And so you end up knowing like astronomy is like a pretty insular community. Like you end up knowing all astronomers, because especially if you go to the same conferences, you keep knowing them. And so like, do
astronomers have beef with each other?
Oh yeah.
There are astronomers that like don't want to be in the same room as each other.
Yes, because of research. Yeah. So the beef is kind of simmered a little now, but like, so at the center of our galaxy, the Milky Way, at the very center, there's a black hole, and the black hole was discovered essentially simultaneously, but I tend to side with two people. One was in Europe, and one was in America. The woman in America, her name is Andrea Ghez. You should look her up. She's incredible. Cool. She discovered it by looking and seeing that there were little stars that were moving around something that had to be like millions of times more massive than the sun, but it wasn't giving off any light. And it was like, oh, this is got to be a black hole.
You crazy for this one?
In Europe, this astronomer named Reinhard Genzel, which is a very villainous sounding name. Yeah, he also like did a lot of these observations as well. And so over the years, they both are like, they and their graduate students and their postdocs would like go to conferences about the black hole at the center of our galaxy, and then just give talks about like, well, I think it's this. Well, I think it's this. And like, it got pretty beefy at certain conferences. I know all this because I was at UCLA while all of this was going on, where they would be at conferences and like, they'd give up and give a talk. And then the next person would give up and insert another slide to be like, well, actually, this is getting right at the thing that you just said in your talk. And it's this and this and this. And there was like a couple times where like things would happen and both different teams would make predictions about what would happen. Like a gas cloud would go fall into the black hole. So one side would be like, it's a star. And the other it's just a gas cloud. And then they'd have to wait to see who was right. And because Europeans and Americans have access to different telescopes, like there's a rivalry in like the telescopes that you can use and the instruments on the telescopes that you can use. And I was at a colloquium, which is one of the big talks at UCLA, when Reinhard Genzel was invited to give a colloquium. And Andrea put this like can of Coke and this can of Pepsi on the stage at the beginning, because someone once referred to them as the Coke and Pepsi of the galactic center. Mm-hmm. And Reinhard Genzel did not find that funny. But that's the type of humor that astronomers love to have.
Colloquiums are crazy.
Yeah, so there's definitely beef, especially in the like really like exciting fields like exoplanet research, where you're looking at planets and stuff. And I am worried because the thing I'm working on with this telescope, like there's established scientists who've been doing this for many, many years. And we get these data because we built this instrument. So when you build a telescope instrument, you get the data to begin with, like at the very beginning, before it goes out to the public. And so I have to do all this research, and then a couple other astronomers are just going to do it and like totally just like shit all over the thing that I just did. Be like, oh, this guy did a terrible job. We can do way better, But that's how it works, right? It's because like astronomers are like anybody, right? Like there's like the idea of glory, especially in the era of like social media. Like it's so tempting. Like you can be a famous astronomer. Ugh. So yeah, is right.
It's too much.
Yes.
Do astronomers hook up?
Yeah, actually.
They do.
I mean, like
those colloquiums. Oh man.
Well, it's mostly just the
And the
big conferences.
symposiums, I swear.
Yeah. Every year there's a big astronomy conference, the AAS, and I bet that those hotel rooms are pretty crazy. Full moons and solar eclipses and stuff. But what's funny is that astronomers, because like when you get to graduate school, your like social life becomes just astronomers. Like for many astronomers, that is when many astronomers meet their partners. And so I think a big chunk of astronomers marry other astronomers. I don't know how I would do it. I'm currently looking at my office mate who is also married to an astronomer, and I don't know how you do it because you have what's called then the two-body problem, which is not as sexy as it sounds. It mostly means that when you get a job, you have to try and find a job that also your partner can have at the same institution, right. And it's a kind of tough thing. But yeah, a lot of astronomers they end up having to like figure that out when they get to a new institution and get a professorship or a postdoc or whatever. I decided to marry a musician, a singer, cool. Because that is way less of a rivalry that I could potentially have over papers and, like citations and when you give colloquia and stuff.
You're telling me. I used to date a guy that was really good at painting. And I was like, fuck, it's so easy for him.
You paint as well, right?
Yes, I'm a painter. So in art school, we were dating, and I'm a lot better at painting like realistic stuff, making stuff look like a photo, and he's really good at like more like cartoony, like invented characters, which I'm really not great at. I feel like people ask me all the time to make stuff like that. I'm like, skill doesn't really translate.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd be like, oh, he's so good. And he'd be like, no, my stuff doesn't even look like anything. Anyways, so
yeah, that rivalry is not fun. Like I've been teaching myself piano, and like
you are
I have
bad.
my wife sit down next to me and be like, it's actually like this. This is like I'm like playing like some dumb Christmas song, and she's like, oh, I think that it actually sounds a little better if you were to try it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. So like I am glad that rivalry is not possible, because like it can just get really, you just get really up in your own head about these sorts of things.
Yeah. Damn. So what are you into? Do you like comedy stuff? How did you find me?
Oh, I think I follow you on Twitter because of you. Gosh, it was like a thing on. Were you profiled on SplitSider years ago? I just followed you for a couple of years, and I don't remember exactly how. But I also like. That. Yeah, when I lived in LA, like you can't help but like go see UCB or other shows that were out there. And I think that Twitter, the whole point for me is just to like serve up funny stuff for me. Like I don't want to use it for like arguing about politics and bullshit like that. So which is bad because I try to make dumb jokes, and astronomers will follow me thinking I'm going to talk about astronomy, and then I just make enough dumb jokes about like Smash Brothers or whatever, and everyone's like, I don't want to follow this guy. So I've had like a couple astronomers who after every conference will like follow me, and they didn't realize that they've already followed me like 3 times, which indicates to me that they followed me and then unfollowed me, and they're like, oh, I should follow this Kevin guy again. And like it's not ever going to be astronomy, folks. It's really not my bag to talk about, because like a lot of astronomers use it like as like a way to be like here's the cool new research and look at this cool new outcome. And I'm like, that's not the way I want to talk about astronomy. I do that through my papers and through like my talks and stuff. I like, if I want to make a dumb joke or if I have a dumb observation about something, that's where Twitter goes. And it's really fun. I've now tried to curate the people I follow on Twitter to be prime laugh material. And so you've been a part of that. So thank you so much for your fun jokes.
Much. I'm looking at your videos. Twitter right now. I see some references to anime, Super Nintendo, Super Smash. Not too much star stuff. The Matrix.
No. Well, that was because when I went to Thanksgiving, my wife's mother could not stop talking about wanting to watch The Matrix over Thanksgiving, and I thought that was really
that's so weird.
Very weird. Yes,
not like mom.
Well, it's because she recently thinks that she disconnected from The Matrix. She's very spiritual. It's very funny. When we first met, she immediately asked Lara, my wife, for my star sign and my date of birth and place so she could draw my chart up. She's very into astrology. And she's been really important for me as a person who like can get really like curmudgeonly about astrology, to like take it easy and cool down and like not give such a shit, because like I just watch it. Doesn't really hurt anybody. Like, it's been a fun thing. And we're living like a really like pro astrology time in the last like 5 to 10 years. And so it's been nice for me to not get all up in arms. Many astronomers will get really frustrated about someone being like, what's your sign? And they're like, well, that doesn't make any sense. The stars don't impact your life.
Yikes.
And I've realized that that's like the biggest jackass thing I can possibly do. So I don't do it anymore. So thank you, Lara's mom.
I think here's my take on astrology. Well, I think we just like live in the same culture as everyone in our country. And so if you're born at the same part of the year, that probably affects like your development in psychology and personality, right?
Yeah.
Like probably that's more what's going on than like a star thing.
Also, what I want people to use astrology for, if they do, is just as an empowering thing. Like, and I think it's nice when someone's like, today's the day where I'm going to do this thing. Go do it. I don't want to. People sometimes will use it as like a thing where like, well, I could never do this because my sign says that I'm not good at this. And you're like, well, no, don't limit yourself, because of that. But like, use any way that you can to like feel good about yourself and say, if you think that because the sun was in a certain part of the sky when you were born and that's the reason why you're good at Sudoku, friggin' be good at Sudoku because of that. Like, I don't need to tell you what to do in that case, but I hate when someone like is like, oh, I could never date that person because of this. Like, we live in a crazy shit show of a world anyway. If you don't limit the amount of people you could potentially date or connect with or be with just because they happen to be a Leo and you're a Aries. I don't know the actual connections there, but
Kevin, watch out.
It's something where I used to be a lot more curmudgeonly. And then it's the ultimate irony is that I'm a Virgo. And Virgos are the most analytic. They like describe me like when you read it, it's like exactly the thing that happens where you go, oh, this is exactly me. And it's upsetting. I dated a cartoonist for a while in Dartmouth, this cartoonist who like was way into astrology. I'm like just delighted in the fact that every time I would do something, she goes, that's a real Virgo thing to do. And she was right. She was right.
Wow. My friend Rosie is a Virgo.
Oh. Is she
so whenever
analytic?
She does anything, our other friend will be like, well, she's a Virgo, so
yeah,
just for like literally anything.
It is, I can tell you from experience, aggravating and often correct.
I think it's something about like, are Virgos kind of like secretive, like when they're dealing with something, kind of like they don't like to show that they're undergoing any stress or problems, like more so than the usual person.
Yes. In fact, that is exactly how I am. Like, I am a person who, when I go through any emotional stuff, like I just disappear. I'm just like, I'm doing this on my own. No one gets to watch Kevin go through his emotional, like, when I have like, when I get like a bad research result or something like that, like I don't like share with everyone and be like, hey, everyone, this is my bad day. Instead, it's just like, I go off the grid, move to the woods and just commune with nature until I kind of figure my shit out and then come back. It is a very secretive like thing, and it's sad that is a Virgo trait because it is a Kevin trait.
Okay. So do you worry that the super interesting romantic intellectualism of astronomy is just going to be used for corporate and perhaps military interests now or in the near future, and you'll be like, ugh, I caught this?
There's definitely a worry about, especially militarization. Often a lot of astronomers get poached by your defense contractors because of the fact that I'm essentially doing high level data analysis that, like, if you were to just replace the words galaxy with, like, I don't know, Iraqi target, like, you're just, exactly. Right. And so like, there's a lot of like, oh, you have experience with doing this telescope sort of thing. Like, we could, use the telescope, but instead of pointing it away, point it at the Earth as a spy satellite. We need someone who can help triangulate. I personally, I could not, like, I couldn't live with myself to do that.
Yeah.
But it is a thing, especially because you don't do astronomy to make money, and defense contractors have money, and that's stability and 401ks and all that. But I think that what's good is that astronomy is like pretty pure of heart in that a lot of astronomers do get into it, not for the money, like, and because they know going into it, you're not going to do it for the money. They get into it because, like, man, the idea of uncovering the secrets and unlocking the secrets of the universe is so exciting. And so, like,
cool.
Exactly. And it will never not be, right? We're never going to run out of space. It will always be something where, like this is the reason why of all the sciences, astronomy is the one that you'll read news articles about. Like, people just like, I go to parties all the time. I joke about this, but at parties, I'm all the person that, like, people will be like, you should meet my boyfriend, or you should meet my, and then I'm in a corner surrounded by boyfriends who are just all telling me the things they read about astronomy from their news articles.
And you're
they're
like,
just like, oh, yep. Well, they want me to say,
right.
wow, you are so smart. You should have been an astronomer. That's what they want me to say.
Right.
But
a lot of people say I could have been an astronomer, but I don't really want to.
Yeah. And I go, well, you should have been. I mean, I'm glad that you didn't, because it would have been more competition for me. But I mostly like, I'm glad that people are reading and caring about astronomy, because, like, that is part of the reason why I do it. I do it because it's really fun when you talk to people and they, like, have some relationship with the stars, right? Like, even me growing up in, like, Southern California with lights everywhere had a relationship with the 10 stars I could see, in terms of, like, watching their motion and caring and wondering what's causing them to look like that, right? And everyone, hopefully, you presumably have had the moment of, like, going to someplace really dark and being like, oh shit, and, like, seeing the stars being, like, incredibly bright and feeling, like, overwhelmed by it. And, like, that is, like, one of the most human emotions you could ever have. Humans have been having that. Your parents and grandparents and great grandparents, like, they had that under the same exact stars stretching all the way back to the beginning of human history. And, like, that is going to keep astronomers doing astronomy, is the fact that people care about that, because it validates their own caring about that. And, like, I feel bad for someone, nothing against, but if you work on, like, a sea slug, like, it's going to be hard for you to go to a conference or go to a party and have someone be like, oh my gosh, I read about this sea slug just the other day. Sea slugs are really interesting. Don't get me wrong, sea slug researchers, but, like, I work on, like, supermassive black holes. Like, that's a thing that people just, like, put in movies, right? Like, it's an interest. It's very cool.
I have a cue. So what about, like, what's the word? Like, do you think we're going to colonize space soon, and won't that, like, lead to a bunch of, like, just pretty much what we've done to Earth?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that the colonization of Mars or the moon is, like, a ways off, if at all, and I don't think we deserve it. Like, I don't think we have earned the right to go to other places because of how we've dealt with the like Earth is, like, perfect for us. It's fantastic for us, and Mars, the moon, like, the moon is uninhabitable, just like it's a miserable nightmare. Mars has, like, so many difficulties. And the problem is that the people who would go there to begin with are either, astronauts or you're incredibly rich people. And, like, it's not a fun pleasure cruise.
Shut
and I think
up.
that, like, it's such a ways off that I would much rather that we focus our efforts on making sure that our planet is viable and livable. And, like, that's the big, most scary thing, like, that humans have to deal with right now. And I don't, people ask me all the time, oh, are you going to go to the moon? Do you want to go to Mars? I'm like, I don't want us to think and spend money on that. I want us to spend money on fixing shit here, because it's this, like, dire situation. Not to be the scientist who comes on your show and tells you about how dire it is, because but everyone should be aware it is, like, as bad as you have read.
Yeah.
And, like, you should really be thinking about that as, like, a way to, in terms of how you invest and how you think about your future and what you do as a person and who you support politically. But anyway, I'll get off the soapbox. It'd be cool though. Mars would be cool. Like, it's real red.
Sure. Well, what do you make of like commercial space travel? Or I feel like anytime I see, like, a headline in the news about, like, Elon Musk, blah, 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 commercial space, I'm like, oh no, this is, like, going down a path.
It's going to be, like, rich people spending money that they could spend. Like, when you like, because I'm married to, you must understand. I understand. I'm not a rich person. My wife and I, we make an okay living, but, like, when I see people spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on, like, a flight, and I think about, like, the youth programs that could be funded and, like, the cleanup efforts and things that could be funded just because a rich person wanted to go see the curvature of the Earth, like, I just, like, want to burn the whole, like, bring, it's a nightmare.
Kevin, watch out.
We have so much we can do like here on our planet. And so commercial space things is like, just like, it's masturbatory to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a real dour way to end this.
I guess maybe what you're saying is that like, the space travel industry will be more similar to like sea cruise lines and not necessarily like that we should be like, oh no, people are gonna like move to Mars and fuck up Mars.
No. Yeah, think about it like that, like a dangerous extreme sport.
So many people are gonna die. It's like so unwise. Yep.
Because the people who are doing it are not doing it in a safe way. They're doing it in a way where it's like, oh, this will make money and we're safe. But like things are going to blow up and people are going to die. And it's going to be like really a tragedy because it's going to be like just a lot of money spent to like explode a rich person over the Pacific Ocean. Like that's terrifying to me. We can do so much cool stuff here from the planet. Yeah. We can do so much cool stuff in terms of like looking at the stars and like exploring space from our planet and exploring our planet that like we don't need to put people up on the moon right now. Like there's no need. We can put robots there.
Ooh.
Yeah. Like Mars is inhabited entirely by robots right now. It's a planet full of robots and the robots are doing great work, taking good pictures. Like what do you need to do when you go there? You're just going to pull your iPhone out and take pictures yourself. A robot can do it for us and it's way less dangerous.
And you can Photoshop it if you want.
It's true. Yeah. Put yourself in that picture of the Mars thing and it's almost as if you were there.
Well, I'm trying to think of a cool strategy to wind down this call into a way that ties it up into a nice bow. Maybe I'll give you a quick space quiz. Are you ready?
Sure. Let's see if I can answer your space quiz.
Okay. What's your favorite planet?
Oh, Mars.
Ooh, okay. Pluto, planet or not a planet?
Not. When we discovered Pluto back in the 50s, we didn't realize there was a whole bunch of other objects as interesting out there and about the same size and not a little larger in some cases. And so if Pluto's a planet, we have to include a whole bunch of other things out there. And I don't want to have to teach that to like 10-year-olds because that would make the mnemonic really long.
Okay,
right now it's
I am
very
totally done with Pluto now. That makes me so mad.
Well, I mean, like it's it'd be like if you just like only cared about one of the Beatles. They're all important. And if that Beatle was like Ringo, and you were like, man, Ringo should be the only Beatle, and everyone's like,
and
what about
millions of Ringos?
Yes, exactly.
Kevin, watch out! When you were a kid, did you ever have a lamp type thing where there's holes punched into the lampshade that when you put it in the middle of the room, it looks like the solar system?
Mm-hmm, a little star projector. I also was one of those kids with the glow-in-the-dark stars that I had put in the correct constellations on my ceiling. Ooh. That's a typical. And the ceiling was one of those stucco ceilings, so the stickers kept coming off. It was not ideal for sticking.
Sure.
But it made it work.
Yeah, I had one of those little lamps. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. You should get one now. They're still pretty cool.
Ooh, okay. Mm-hmm. Who is your favorite astronomer?
That's a really good question.
I'm
going to say right now, this woman named Henrietta Swan Leavitt. Everyone should look her up. Henrietta Swan Leavitt was an astronomer who was hired at Harvard to be a computer. They hired women back 100 years ago to like do work as a computer. You kind of see this in if you saw Hidden Figures.
Yeah.
They like hired these women of color to do like all the math so that the men didn't have to do the math. But Henrietta Swan Leavitt also discovered that certain stars change their brightness in a way that could be used to figure out how far away they were. And so her work directly led to another guy named Edwin Hubble to figure out that a galaxy was really far away and that the universe was expanding. So she's really the mother of the expanding universe, but we've never heard of her. She has an incredibly interesting story. Henrietta Swan Leavitt. Look her up. She's awesome.
And my final question. What would you like aliens to look like? I don't want to hear like, well, realistically, life would probably, I want to hear what you would want an alien to look like.
I think it would be really great if when they got here, they looked like exactly like the aliens that have been like terrifying people in movies for the last like 50 years, like gray with big eyes, like X-File aliens, like exactly like it. Because I would love a whole generation of UFO people to be like, see, we were totally right. These are the grays. you know, like because like realistically, you're right. I don't know, they'll be like sentient, like mists or something. I don't know.
Sure.
But like, I would love it if they looked exactly like the typical depiction of aliens. Like if you Google alien and just see what they look like.
Take me to your dealer.
Yeah.
Well, heck.
This was fun. Thank
This
you
was
for calling
fun.
and interviewing me.
Thank you, Kevin the astronomer. Do
Yeah.
you have any plugs? I've never interviewed an astronomer. Do you have like any stuff that you want people to look at?
I mean, you know, if like you can follow me on Twitter, but it's mostly dumb jokes. But I do talks all over the world at places about space. And so if you go to my website, which is kevinhamlin.com, this is a dumb plug. You can hire me and bring me out to talk about the stars and stuff.
You
I
crazy
love
for
doing
this
it.
one.
It's really fun. In January, I'm going to go talk to an anti-recidivism group, people who've been in prison and are now like, you know, and I'm going to talk about the stars with them, which is a pretty cool way to connect them.
That's so cool.
You know. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I do these things all over to like really just show people the stars, but not like a boring way, but more like a way that's like, hey, this is a part of your history as just as much as it is anyone's history. And like, that's a really cool thing that connects us as humans in an era where we like to split ourselves away from each other and like say, you're different than me because of this stupid thing. Like, I like to remind everyone that we're all the same group of dorks looking up at the stars as we always were. And like, it's a beautiful thing to have and share.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of your day.
Bye. Wow, I really learned a lot from Kevin the astronomer. And boy, those riffs sounded pretty good, don't you think? You couldn't even tell that they were edited in afterwards. Sounded very natural, in my opinion. Well, you know, please contact me if you are any type of scientist or climate scientist or sea slug scientist. I would love to hear about that. And, well, okay. Goodbye. I love you.
Forever Dog.
This has been a Forever Dog production. Executive produced by Brett Boehm, Joe Cilio, and Alex Ramsey. For more original podcasts, please visit foreverdogpodcasts.com and subscribe to our shows on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Keep up with the latest Forever Dog news by following us on Twitter and Instagram @ForeverDogTeam